celebration of Mother's Day this past Sunday, I figured we could honor one of the worst mothers in history. A woman who had all the money in the world, but couldn't buy decent parenting skills to save her life. I'm talking about the Gilded Age's Alva Vanderbilt. Now, if you watch The Gilded Age on HBO, this is actually Carrie Coon's character. She doesn't literally play Alva Vanderbilt, but whoever her character is actually based on this woman.
Oh, it's a big nod to her.
It's a big nod. So once upon a time, there was a girl, and by girl, I mean heiress, named Consuelo. So Consuelo was born into the famed Vanderbilt family, one of the richest families in American history in the 19th century. And her mother was, of course, none other than Alva Vanderbilt. And Alva actually named her after her Cuban-American heiress bestie named Consuelo, who had married a British duke, because nothing says I love my child quite like naming her after your richest friend's success story. So as you can see, Alva was less like having a mom and more like having the PR rep from hell. Like I said, the Vanderbilts were filthy rich, and they could buy and build anything you could ever dream of, except for social acceptance. The Vanderbilts were new money, which in the 19th century was a bit like being an influencer on the Met Gala red carpet. Like, you might be richer and more relevant than most of the people here, but you're not the right kind of rich and relevant.
Yeah, old money hated new money back in the day, and they still kind of do.
And since it wasn't enough to just enjoy all the luxuries you could ever want, Alva decided to solve the final piece of her first world problems. So while most people saw Consuelo as Alva's daughter, Alva saw her as a bargaining chip. So Consuelo's an adult, but in 1895, she was living out every eldest daughter's reality. Never being enough for your parents. She was sweet, smart, kind, and fluent in French, charitable, but her mother was still not pleased with her because, in the words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not a duchess, you're last. So Consuelo commits the greatest crime you can when you're the only daughter of a delusional 19th century social climber. She fell in love with a normie.
No.
And by a normie, I mean a really rich American man.
Now, at this point in time, Bert, all the American mothers, were shipping their daughters over to Europe to find themselves dukes. And because those dukes were having, like, their coffers were running low, they needed rich American wives to, like, help with their... So it was like a
It's
whole...
like livestock.
Oh, dude, it was crazy.
It was an exchange. They're like, we're poor but relevant, and you guys are rich and losers. So they created an alliance, essentially.
I want your money, you want my title. Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal, baby. So she has a crush on this really rich American man, which is yuck if you don't have a title. So this is where Alva goes from being controlling and problematic to a DC Comics villain. She looks at her daughter and she's like, girl, love is temporary. Titles are forever. You're marrying the Duke of Marlborough. So Consuelo was devastated. Not only was her future being controlled by someone with a dictator's conscience, but she was going to be forced into a loveless marriage with someone who had the personality of unsalted butter. What else could Consuelo do except for beg and cry and try to elope with her broke millionaire boyfriend? Alva, of course, is unfazed by any of this. She's like, go ahead and try, girly pop. I'll just ruin your boy toy's reputation, which doesn't sound that scary until you realize Alva once destroyed an entire socialite at brunch with just eye contact and meringue. So eventually Consuelo gave in, and by gave in, I mean she was locked into her room and coerced into submission, as is tradition. And the wedding date comes, and it is a literal nightmare for Consuelo. She fainted on her wedding day, and not from joy, but from like straight up psychological warfare. And Alva, who had the empathy of a tax auditor, just fanned herself and was like, oh my God, perfect. She's skinny and tragic. The guests are going to love it. And just like that, Consuelo became the Duchess of Marlborough. She moved into Buckingham Palace, which sounds like a fairy tale, but it was really just Buckingham Palace. If everyone inside was deeply repressed and allergic to affection. So it was exactly like Buckingham Palace. And Alva, she was giddy. She had just gotten the job done. Her mission was accomplished. She could wipe her hands clean, and this was going to go down in the history books. All was right in the world. Except for one thing. The marriage didn't last that long. Consuelo ended up getting divorced and ended up marrying someone she actually liked. And you know what? To her credit, Alva did something for Consuelo most kids will never get from their parents. An apology.
What?
She was like, yeah, I really should have rethought the whole child abuse and forcing her into marriage thing, maybe, which I'm sure made up for all the irreparable generational trauma she caused Consuelo.
Right.
After getting served several slices of humble pie, Alva went on a little scavenger hunt to find the audacity, because then Alva became an advocate for women's rights, because there is nothing rich white women love more than performative activism. So next time your mom starts to feel a little bit like a helicopter mom, just remember it could have been so much worse. You could have been born into insane American wealth at the small cost of having a mother who loved her reputation more than you. Happy belated Mother's Day.
Well,
The Bert Show.